So it's interesting to think about in terms of the Olmsted and Vaux connection here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the first project that Olmsted and Vaux did together was Central Park.
That's right. It was the first one they did together. The circumstances under which they came together is really compelling. Or at least the experience they brought to the table for it was pretty compelling. Olmsted, I did not know this until having done some research for the walk, had a prominent career as a journalist before he became what he is known as now, which is this, designer of parks and also
the father
conservationist.
Of landscape architecture, as they call him.
Yeah, I find that kind of a complicated situation, but because Vaux was such an integral part in getting his career started in this area.
I see.
But he, just to speak about his journalism career for a second, he did this 5-year tour of the Plantation South, the slave era economy South. And fortunately for the future and being able to talk about him in some regard, he found that his findings were that the slave economy was not only just morally wrong, but also just terribly inefficient. And not, the same amount of work that could be done in the North would take 4 times as long in the South using slave labor. And so he did this report took over 5 years, multiple volumes for the New York Times. And as a consequence, he established some renown for himself. And from there, he was friends with this gentleman, Andrew Jackson Downing. And that was a famous landscape architect of the time. And Calvert Vaux worked with him. And Downing was the person that hooked the two of them up. And he then died suddenly. And at that point, Vaux and Olmsted teamed up for the pitch on Central Park. And Olmsted's really contribution to it was, I guess, just the opinions he had. He had also gone to England before he had done the overview of the plantation economy, and had observed a lot of the gardens there and started forming opinions. And he had a tremendous amount of political connections, I guess, and was just kind of more of a charismatic guy. And then Vaux, he was no slouch as far as what he had designed the White House grounds and a number of other different projects with Downing. And there seemed to be, there's written some idea that maybe Vaux felt a little bit resentful for Olmsted. But that was kind of the thing that I thought was the most compelling for us to talk about today, in that as I said earlier, you could do an episode on every one of these parks, and we could have historians and politicians, and there's just so much content, and we're not going to be able to capture all of that in an accurate way, but I think something that we all experience or have an idea of,
Oh, I just want to stop here.
Yeah, of course.
You should finish your sentence.
Is the idea of partnerships. And I think when I think of partnerships in contemporary culture, it's hard because a lot of times we have to have a winner and a loser. There has to be a Garfunkel to a Simon, or an Oates to a Hall, and very rarely is it like a Lennon and a McCartney situation. And if it is, it's then we inject into it that they have a very, contemptuous, relationship, where they had to fight and then they broke up and whatnot. And so, was there some bitterness on Vaux's side? I mean, it's very easy to apply that narrative for me, where it's like, this guy that actually had the experience to do this, you know, but brought in this guy that had the political connections, and then maybe felt like he was taken advantage of or not fully given the appreciation. I mean, certainly people don't know his name, but maybe he didn't feel that way. You know, they formed a company together, and they, you know, basically designed Buffalo and all sorts of these other parks all over the country and all over the continent. And, you know, we like to put these narratives because we see ourselves in them, maybe, or what, I don't know. But that's my contribution to the discussion. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, I think, in our current social relationship climate, you know, we watch so much reality TV, and we watch politics, and we watch things that are sort of contentious, and we like that drama as entertainment. And I don't really know how far that stems back, but I do wonder if it's part of just the general human condition to feel competitive and to feel like you want recognition for the things that you've done. I guess you want to feel valued, you want to feel seen, you want to feel appreciated. And I guess I can speculate kind of in two different directions. I could, on one hand, I could imagine, you know, Vaux was older and had more experience, and he knew when he asked Olmsted to be part of his team, he knew that it was for the connections, and he knew that Olmsted was the young guy that had a lot of, not like, was already
I think he was
well
actually
known.
2 years younger. Vaux
Oh, that
was
was
actually
it?
2 years
Oh,
younger,
really?
I believe so. It was a
way you read
2 year
about it, it's
difference,
like-
but I mean, it was
Okay.
that he had the experience in the arena,
Okay, yeah.
and Olmsted obviously had some sort of flair
Yeah.
for the idea.
Vision and
Yeah.
and way of speaking about it and connection with the people that would get them the job. So on one hand, I could imagine, you know, if I were Vox's position, I could either think, what the hell, this guy is new here, why am I not getting the credit, what's going on? Or I could think this is exactly why I brought him on. And I get
True.
to do the thing that I love to do, which is landscape architecture. I've done this for such a long time. I've never gotten a project as big as Central Park. I don't know if I could have gotten it without Olmsted, purely because of his name. And then they went on to do a bunch of stuff together, like for years and years. And like you said, designed parks all over the country and into Canada. And yeah.
There's no reason to assume, I mean, you've done the research, but there's no reason to assume that there was tension just because we now have stories about there being tension.
Yeah.
Right.
If they were really working together every day, that's just work. Who knows what it was like? Every day was probably different. Maybe there was tension that was explicit, but...
I mean, they certainly, they came together at the end of Vaux drowned tragically in Gravesend, and Olmsted ended up declining into senility and retired to, you know, his final years.
Yeah.
But before either of those instances happened, they did get together on a park to honor their friend and mentor Downing.
Oh.
So certainly they were able to put aside if there were differences.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think it's so tempting. Even as I say this, I am definitely interested in applying narratives to any tandem I see, and try to think like, well, how does this relationship work, you know, and and then reducing it to some sort of, oh, it's peanut butter and jelly, or it's oil and vinegar, you know, it's like, and it always has to be that way. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way, but it feels good as a human to like put those boxes, you know, together.